The celestial harbinger had been dead for 117 years. It sat in the forgotten corner of Dock 47 on Nexus Station, a monument to failure that every species in the galaxy had tried, and failed, to resurrect. The ship was a legend, a relic from the first expansion era when humanity still dreamed small. Its quantum drive had been the prototype for every FTL engine that came after, but when it died mid-flight during a classified mission, even its creators couldn't bring it back to life. The Vryn, with their crystalline computational minds, had declared it impossible. The Korthax engineers, whose people built stars from scratch, had walked away shaking their heads. Even the synthetic omnids, who could interface directly with any machine consciousness, had found nothing but silence in its circuits. So it remained, gathering cosmic dust and bureaucratic neglect, until Gull and Kevin arrived with nothing but a toolbox, desperation, and 48 hours before eviction. "This is it?" Gull stared up at the massive vessel, her dark eyes reflecting the dim emergency lights that barely illuminated its hull. Her voice carried that particular blend of awe and dismay that came from seeing your last hope in person. "This is the ship that's going to save us?" Kevin was already climbing the access ladder, his worn jumpsuit marked with the stains of 100 failed repair jobs. "It's the ship that's going to pay our rent," he called down. "The station master said if we can get it moving, even just power it on, the salvage rights are ours. We can sell it for parts and finally get off this rock. Kevin, every species in the known galaxy has tried to fix this thing." "Yeah, and they all had one thing in common." He reached the airlock and began manually cranking the emergency release. None of them were broke enough. Gull sighed and followed him up. Being broke was something they had mastered lately. Two human mechanics trying to make it in a station where most sophisticated repairs were done by species, with abilities humans simply didn't possess. Telepathic diagnostics, molecular restructuring, quantum probability manipulation. All they had were hands, tools, and stubbornness. The airlock groaned open, and they stepped into darkness that smelled like old circuits and abandoned dreams. Kevin activated his palm light, and Gull did the same. The beam cut through the gloom of the ship's main corridor, revealing walls that had once been pristine white but now showed the patina of age. "Okay," Gull said, pulling out her scanner. "Let's see what everyone else saw." She ran the diagnostic, and the results made her heart sink. "Kevin, this is worse than I thought." The quantum drive isn't just offline, it's in some kind of paradox state. The computer shows it's both functioning and not functioning simultaneously. No wonder the Vryn couldn't crack it. What did the Korthax try? According to the logs, they attempted a complete power system rebuild, replaced every energy conduit in the ship, and the Omnids, full neural integration, tried to communicate with the ship's AI directly. Gull looked up from her scanner. "Kevin, we can't do any of that. We don't have their tech, their abilities, or their resources." Kevin had moved deeper into the corridor, his light playing over a sealed door marked engineering. "Maybe that's why we'll succeed." "What?" He turned to face her, and in his eyes was that spark of reckless optimism that had gotten them into, and occasionally out of, trouble before. "Everyone who tried to fix this ship treated it like an alien artifact. But Gull, this was built by humans. For humans, with human logic and human engineering. That was a century ago. Technology has gotten more sophisticated, yeah, but has it gotten simpler?" He pressed his palm against the engineering door's manual override. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't what's needed. Sometimes you just need someone who understands the basics. The door hissed open and they entered the engineering bay. At its center, suspended in a cradle of support structures, was the quantum drive, a sphere of crystalline metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Gull approached it cautiously, her scanner going wild with conflicting readings. The paradox is centered in the drive core itself. Every attempt to interact with it just reinforces the quantum lock. Kevin circled the drive, studying it from every angle. Then he did something that made Gull's blood run cold. He reached out and touched it with his bare hand. "Kevin, no. The quantum field could—" "It's cold," he said simply, "and I think I know what's wrong." "How could you possibly—" "Because I've felt this before." He moved to a maintenance panel on the drive's housing. "Last year, remember that shuttle that wouldn't start? Every diagnostic said the engine was perfect, but it wouldn't fire up. That was a stuck emergency lockout, Gull said slowly. A mechanical failsafe that engaged when the ship detected a potential catastrophe and shut everything down to protect itself. Kevin popped open the panel, revealing a nest of ancient wiring and one small, almost invisible switch. The Celestial Harbinger didn't break down, Gull. It saved itself. His fingers found a manual override, a simple mechanical lever that predated every sophisticated system that had been added later. The kind of thing that advanced species would never think to look for, because their technology had evolved beyond such primitive solutions. Whatever happened on that classified mission, Kevin continued, the ship detected something that made it initiate an emergency shutdown. A full systems lockout at the hardware level. Every attempt to restart it digitally just reinforced the lockout because the ship thought it was under attack. So all we need to do is tell it that the danger has passed. Kevin gripped the lever, manually, like humans used to do before we got fancy. He pulled. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sphere began to hum, a low, resonant frequency that Gull felt in her bones. Lights flickered on throughout the engineering bay, weak at first, then growing stronger. The quantum drive started to glow, not with the unstable paradox readings from before, but with steady, purposeful luminescence. Throughout the ship, systems began waking up. The main computer's voice, unused for more than a century, crackled to life. Emergency lockout disengaged. Running full diagnostics. All systems nominal. Quantum drive operating at optimal parameters. Welcome aboard and thank you for your patience. Gull stared at the readings on her scanner, hardly believing what she was seeing. We did it. We actually did it. Kevin leaned against the drive housing, grinning like an idiot. Told you being broke was an advantage. We couldn't afford to overthink it. The station master's voice came through their communicators, shock evident in every syllable. Doc 47, we're reading power signatures from the Harbinger. Please confirm, is that ship actually running? Confirmed, Gull replied, unable to keep the triumph from her voice. The Celestial Harbinger is fully operational. There was a long pause. Then, in accordance with station salvage law, the ship is yours. Congratulations, you two. You just did what the entire galaxy said was impossible. As they stood in the glow of the revived quantum drive, Kevin put his arm around Gull's shoulders. So, partner, what do you want to do with our new ship? Gull looked around at the engineering bay, at the systems humming back to life, at the vessel that hadn't given up even after a century of silence. I think, she said slowly, we keep it. There are probably a lot of impossible repairs out there that just need someone broke and stubborn enough to try. And human enough to keep things simple, Kevin added. The Celestial Harbinger's engines thrummed with agreement, ready to fly again. Not because of advanced alien technology or sophisticated quantum manipulation, but because two humans had understood something fundamental that the galaxy had forgotten. Sometimes the simplest solution is the right one, and sometimes all a machine needs is for someone to believe it's worth saving. As they prepared the ship for its first flight in more than a century, Gull smiled. The galaxy was full of impossible problems, and now they had a legendary ship to help solve them. All because they'd been too broke to know better.